You remember the exact moment you decided you were going to buy it. Not the dealership, not the test drive. Before all of that, you were sitting in traffic in your 2013 Civic, the one with the cracked dashboard and the aux cord that only worked if you held it at a specific angle, and a black BMW 4 Series pulled up next to you at the light. Clean, low, the kind of car that doesn't make noise when it moves, it just parts the air around it. The driver wasn't looking at you. He wasn't looking at anyone. He was just existing inside that car the way some people exist inside a life that fits them perfectly. And something in your chest did something specific, something that wasn't quite envy and wasn't quite admiration, but lived in the exact space between them. The light turned green. He pulled away. You stayed in the Civic with the cracked dashboard and the aux cord, and you made a decision that felt, at the time, like ambition. You were 24. You'd been working for 2 years. You had $11,000 saved. You had no debt except a small student loan you were managing. You were, by any honest accounting, building something, slowly, the right way. And then the BMW pulled away from the light and the building. It slowly felt, for the first time, like losing. So you started looking. Not seriously, just looking. That is always how it starts. Just looking is the most expensive hobby most people never identify as a habit. What you want to be told right now is that the car was worth it. That 25-year-old you made an understandable choice and it all worked out fine. And some version of that might even be true. But it's not the whole truth. And the part that isn't the whole truth is costing people in their 20s and 30s something that doesn't show up on a payment schedule and doesn't get mentioned in a car commercial. Stay with me. Because this isn't a lecture about depreciation. This is about the specific personal, psychological weight of a financial decision made for the right feeling at the wrong time. And if you've made this decision or you're thinking about making it, what I'm about to walk you through is going to land differently than anything else you've heard on this subject. The year is 2019. You are 25 years old. Your salary is $58,000. After taxes, you take home around $3,700 a month. Your rent is $1,050. Your student loan is $280. Your other expenses run around $600. You have, on paper, roughly $1,700 in monthly discretionary space. You feel, in a way, that is difficult to fully convey to someone who hasn't felt it, like you have finally arrived at a version of your life that has room in it. That feeling is real. It is also the most dangerous financial condition a 25-year-old can be in. Not poverty, not crisis. Room. Because room feels like permission. You go to the dealership on a Saturday. You tell yourself you are just looking. The salesperson's name is Marcus. Marcus is good at his job in the way that people who've done something for a long time in an environment that rewards results become good at it. He doesn't push. He just opens the door of the demo model and steps back. He lets the car make the argument. And the car makes a very persuasive argument. You test drive it for 12 minutes. It is the best 12 minutes of your week. Maybe your month. The acceleration is immediate and smooth, and the seats hold you in a way your Civic never did. And the sound system makes a playlist you've heard 100 times sound different, better, like it was waiting for a room this good to finally come through correctly. Marcus runs the numbers while you're still in the feeling. This is not an accident. A 2018 study from Carnegie Mellon University on purchase decision timing found that salespeople in high-emotion environments are trained to present financial terms within the emotional peak window, before the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for long-term consequence evaluation, has had time to reassert itself. Marcus is not manipulating you. He is simply doing his job inside a system that understands your brain better than you do in that moment. The number is $847 a month, 48-month term. 0 down because you qualify, and 0 down feels like you're keeping your savings intact, even though what you're actually doing is maximizing the total interest paid over the life of the loan. You don't think about total interest. You think about $847 a month. You run the math. You have $1,700 in discretionary space. $847 fits. It fits the way a piece fits in a puzzle when you've been forcing it, and it finally goes in. You tell yourself it's tight but manageable, that you'll cut back on other things, that this is an investment in yourself. You sign on a Tuesday. For approximately 90 days, the car is everything you imagined it would be. You take a longer route to work. You find reasons to drive places you could walk. You park farther from the entrance of every store, so nobody parks next to you and opens their door into the door panel you're still thinking about twice a day. You show your friends. You take pictures. You tell yourself a casual. You feel pulling into the parking lot of a restaurant or a work event or your parents' house. A specific thing. A thing that is partly pride and partly relief, and partly the quiet satisfaction of having decided something and executed it. The feeling peaks at around week 6. Then it starts, slowly, to normalize. This is not a character flaw. This is one of the most well-documented phenomena in behavioral psychology. Researchers call it hedonic adaptation. Your brain has a baseline level of satisfaction that it returns to after positive and negative events, with remarkable consistency. A 1978 landmark study by Brickman, Coates, and Janoff-Bullman compared the happiness levels of lottery winners and accident victims, and found that within 18 months, both groups had returned to approximately their pre-event happiness baseline. The lottery winners were not significantly happier. The accident victims were not significantly less happy. The brain recalibrates. Your car recalibrates. By month 4, it is no longer the BMW. It is just your car, the one that costs $847 a month, the one you have to think about twice before booking a flight somewhere, the one that made you say no to the ski trip your friends planned in February because the numbers didn't work anymore, and you told them it was scheduling, not money, because money felt too honest. And this is where the story stops being about a car, because the $847 a month isn't just $847 a month. It never was. It is the concert you didn't go to. It is the dinner you did the mental math on before agreeing to. It is the weekend trip that kept getting moved to next month. It is the emergency fund that never got finished because there was always something the discretionary money needed to cover first. It is the course you wanted to take that would have cost $600 once and might have changed the trajectory of something important. It is every small yes you couldn't say because an invisible no was already sitting in your budget wearing the shape of a monthly payment. Financial psychologists call this opportunity cost invisibility. The human brain is neurologically weak at tracking the cost of what you didn't buy. You can feel the $847 leaving your account because it leaves. But you cannot feel the ski trip that didn't happen. You cannot feel the investment account that didn't grow. The missing things are invisible precisely because they are missing, and the brain cannot grieve an absence the way it can register a presence. But the absence compounds. That is the part that doesn't become visible until you are 29 or 30, and you sit down one night and you try to figure out where the money went, and the answer is structured, monthly, automatic, and 4 years deep. Here is the number that changes how you see this. $847 a month for 48 months is $40,656. That is the minimum cost of the car before insurance, before maintenance, before the 2 tires you replaced at month 14, before the registration fees that were higher than you expected, before the parking ticket you paid in October because parallel parking, something this wide on a narrow street at night, is harder than it looked. The all-in cost of that car over 4 years, fully accounted for, is closer to $52,000, probably more. $52,000 invested at a conservative 7% average annual return from age 25 to age 65 is $778,000. Not from a windfall, not from a salary jump, from a car you stopped noticing by month 4. That is the number. That is the silent, invisible, never discussed other side of the decision you made on a Tuesday at a dealership, because the seats held you in a way your Civic never did. Now you're 28, the loan ends in 4 months. You thought the loan ending would feel like a finish line. It does not feel like a finish line. It feels like catching your breath after running a distance you didn't fully choose. The car is paid off, and you look at your savings account, and the number there is smaller than it should be at 28, and you know why. And the knowing sits in a specific place that isn't quite regret, because you don't fully regret it. You regret the version of it you didn't understand at 25, the full version, the opportunity cost version, the what could have been in the account version. Because here is what nobody told you at 25, not in a way that landed, not in a way that competed with the feeling of 12 minutes in that car on a Saturday afternoon. The car was never going to give you what you were actually looking for at that light. What you were looking for when the BMW pulled away was not a car. You were looking for evidence that you were going to be okay, that the 2 years of work were pointing somewhere real, that the version of your life that felt like it fit was within reach. The car felt like that evidence. It felt like proof. And proof felt worth $847 a month. But proof doesn't live in a car. It never did. It lives in the account you build slowly and don't touch, in the options that quietly accumulate when you make decisions for the future self rather than the present feeling. In the morning at 32, when you look at a number that represents not what you drove but what you built, and the number is large enough that your relationship with work, with choices, with other people's opinions of your choices, changes permanently because you are no longer operating from scarcity. You are operating from a foundation. 25-year-old you didn't know this. That is not a failure. 25-year-old you was doing exactly what 25-year-old people do inside a consumer system that is very specifically designed to make the monthly payment feel like the full cost of a decision. The system is not your enemy, but it is not your ally either. It is indifferent. And indifferent systems do not warn you about what you're actually trading. You do the math at 30, not to punish yourself, just to see it clearly. The loan is done. The car is yours. It's worth about $14,000 now, down from the $38,000 you paid for it. You think about the $11,000 you had saved before the dealership, about how close you were to a different kind of foundation, not the foundation of a paid-off car, the foundation of a self that didn't need the proof anymore because the account was the proof. You think about the BMW pulling away from the light. And here is what 30-year-old you knows that 24-year-old you didn't. That driver wasn't looking at you. He wasn't looking at anyone. Because people who are genuinely okay don't spend a lot of energy managing what they look like to the person in the next lane. The performance is for the people who haven't arrived yet. The people who have arrived are just driving. You're going to be okay. The decision cost you something real, and it also taught you something real, and the teaching is now an asset that the payment schedule never was. The next decision will be different. Not because you're harder on yourself, because you can now see the full cost of a choice, not just what leaves the account, what never gets to enter it. That is the education. It was expensive. It was also, if you let it be, worth exactly what you paid. Keep the car. Drive it until the wheels fall off. And while you're driving it, build the thing the car was supposed to prove you had. Because you can build it. You always could. The only thing that changed is now you know what it actually takes. And what it takes is never the car.